Hello and welcome back to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Tara Nolan from Nolan Financial. Welcome to today's show. We are going to be talking about financial follies. So for those of you who are new, welcome. I would say that as the show is going on, if you have any questions, feel free to give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. And definitely check out our fabulous new website, www.nolanfinancialpartners.com. There you can see a lot of information. You can actually click on the radio show button and go back and listen to past shows. We do lots of educational topics because Chris and I really feel like it's all about being able to ask good questions because there's tons of information out there. And the question is always like, oh, does that apply to me? I know my coworkers doing that, but does that apply to me? And so we like to have a lot of fun, and we talk about everything from Medicare to IRAs to 401ks to financial follies. So please go ahead and check out the website and definitely give Chris and I a call, 719-210-4242, to go ahead and set up a face-to-face or virtual consultation discovery call as well. So before we jump into the show any further, let me say hello to my amazing co-host, Tony Shore. Tony, what's up?
I'm alive and awake this morning. So that's good. That's the first step, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good first step.
Yeah. Well, here's what's exciting for me today, Tara. My grandfather turns 101 this week.
Wow.
101. And they're having a birthday party in my hometown for him. So I'm traveling there this weekend where my parents are. So I get to see my parents, and my grandpa Bob is 101, and
wow.
he will drive to, they're having it at a party room at a place in town. He will drive there. And he will walk in on his own, and his memory is sharp as a tack. Now he's moving pretty slow because he had a stroke last year and his right arm and leg don't work great, but his speech is fine and his memory is sharp as ever, and he still gets around with a walker. So,
wow, tell him happy birthday. That is amazing.
Isn't that incredible? But what's funny is we talk on the show, I was thinking the other day, we talk on the show about things like RMDs, and you told me required minimum distributions, how important they are to retirement planning and figuring things out with your IRAs and your 401ks. Well, if you think about it, it was 70 and a half was when he had to start taking RMDs. He's been taking RMDs for 30 years.
As long as most people are working.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't that something?
That is amazing.
Yeah, he's an amazing person, and he paints. He had to teach himself to paint with his left hand after the stroke. So he paints paintings, and isn't that something?
That's phenomenal. So you've got some good genes in there.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. How about you? Tell me about you. You're the exciting man, the incredible man in your life, Chris, your business partner and husband. How's he doing?
Chris is doing amazing. He had a workout this morning, and he's getting ready to go meet with some clients while we are doing our radio show recording.
Oh, good.
And we're looking forward to, it's supposed to get a little bit nicer this weekend. We've had some cold weather. Of course, I know for you, our cold weather is not like your cold weather.
Yeah, I'm here in Minnesota, and it was below zero last night again. And it was worse. The wind kicked up. So we had to turn our furnace up a couple of notches just to keep the house warm inside. It was so windy. So, but yeah, that's good. Now, the bigger news, bigger than my grandfather's 101st birthday and bigger than the weather warming up, is your book. We're so close. I can feel it, right?
We're so close. The last assignment, so I'll be getting it back from the typesetter, is we have to read the entire book out loud. And my editor explained, she's like, when you read, your eye will correct mistakes.
Yep.
And so even though we've had two editors and a proofreader and a typesetter, she's like, you got to read it out loud because that's when you hear the things that don't work.
Yep.
And so Chris and I are now trying to figure out like where we're going to sit down and have a beer and a glass of wine, perhaps, and start reading the book.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, probably not all in one sitting. Probably you'll break it up into a couple of sessions, I would think. So, yeah, maybe a couple of nights of reading this weekend, right?
Well, we're going to try to get through it as quickly, because then once that's done, then we can go ahead and get it ready for pre-order. So that's the only thing standing between me and getting the pre-orders out. And it's just a process. It's it's about the journey, not the destination. But
right. And I'm
the
excited.
Destination's getting close.
I'm excited because you're going to do it. You told me today you're doing an audiobook version. So that'll be great. Yeah. And you've had all the practice on the radio show, and you'll read the book out loud before you record it. So I think that's going to be an awesome audiobook. And a lot of people nowadays, myself included, I love to read books, but I just don't have the time to sit down and read. So I listen to audiobooks when I'm in my car driving, if I'm going to the gym. This is when I listen to audiobooks.
It'll be interesting. There's one of the spiritual teachers I listen to, and he does lots of education bits. He wrote a book, but he had someone else read it. And it was interesting because he's kind of got a thick accent. So he maybe when you listen to him, it's a little hard to hear, but he had someone else read his book, and it just was wrong because I wanted to hear him read it.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited I think it's important that I read the book, good or bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's going to be voice actors that are amazing, but I think there's something to listening to the author read the book.
No, for you have to read it. And especially a book like this. It would be different if it was fiction. Right. If you wrote a mystery or a romance novel or something, then you want voice actors. But a book like this, where it's your personal experiences and how they can relate to helping people, and you're teaching and educating with this book, it makes sense. So that's good. I think it's going to be great. And I know we're going to have a big giveaway here on the show of the book. We'll do some, like first 5 callers maybe one day get a free book, or the people who, and of course, everyone who makes an appointment to come see you, that complimentary appointment will come with a complimentary book. So I know our listeners are getting excited, but they're going to be available for pre-order. If you want to make sure you get one, I know that pre-order is going to go up soon on Amazon.com, isn't it?
Be on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and a couple places for sure.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah, well, what are we talking about on the show today?
Well, talking about the book, it's really interesting. Is we're going to be talking about financial follies. This is a really important part, I think, of the service that I provide with my clients is just talking about and sharing stories, because we're all in this together. And you might be having a financial situation that you're embarrassed about, or you're struggling through, or, whatever. But here's the thing is you're not alone. And what I like to do is share stories, and then we can, look at it through the lens of humor and go, okay, got it. Let's not do that again.
That's funny.
Let's make some new mistakes.
Yeah. And rather than call them, financial mistakes to avoid, it's follies, because sometimes, looking back, time, tragedy plus time equals comedy. So mistakes, exactly. Mistakes we make plus time equals comedy. So we can learn and laugh. Wow, this person did this. Can you believe it? And it cost them this much money. Well, that wouldn't be so funny when it's happening to us. So we want to avoid those things, right?
Exactly. And so this first one I want to talk, I'm going to turn it on its head just a little bit, because, it's called like the latte factor, or, that advice where if you just stop going to Starbucks, think how much money you could save. And
you hear that a lot.
I don't like that message, because I don't think we do financial planning so that we can make our life bigger, not make our life smaller and live in austerity. That's right. But I do want to kind of talk about that example through this lens. Is if you're going to spend money, do something that you really like, but just kind of be aware of what it's costing you. Because here's the thing is, I don't want you going to Starbucks to get coffee mindlessly. Like, go do it because it's something you really enjoy and you're treating yourself and it's about that experience you're creating. Then it's probably worth it. But if all you're doing is just you need a caffeine fix, there's cheaper ways to do that. So just kind of keep that in mind, that I think the emphasis with a lot of these examples we're going to go through, Tony, it's not about minimizing your life or shrinking your life or being scarce. It's about being intentional.
Yep.
And just going, we all have a budget that we work on, and we have things that we love. And so what we want to try to marry up is, hey, these are the things I really love. These are the things that really make me feel good, and I enjoy them. And we want to use our money to support those activities.
Yeah.
And that's where I want you to think about it. But here's the thing is, let's just look at a simple example. Let's just say you go to lunch and you're spending about $30 a week on an afternoon lunch. And you can go, $30 is not a lot. And especially if you have a couple or a family, it's going to cost you that much. You can't eat cheaper than that.
No.
But let's broaden out those numbers. $30 a week is $120 a month. And that's still maybe not that bad. But $30 a week for 52 weeks, that's $1,560.
Yeah.
So then that's when you start going, this year, $1,560, that could be kind of a nice, weekend somewhere.
Sure. And that's once a week. I know some people who spend $30 a day eating out.
Right.
I mean, can you fathom that? I mean, now that's when it really starts to add up.
It does, but I can tell you, like when I was a lieutenant down in Florida, I realized very quickly that I couldn't afford to eat McDonald's. And, you could eat a meal back then at McDonald's for $5 a day. Yeah. And I couldn't afford it as a lieutenant. I said, I literally do not make enough money to pay my bills and have McDonald's every day. So good news, I didn't need to be eating McDonald's every day.
Yeah.
But, you're a lieutenant, you're single, you're not cooking.
Yeah.
It seemed like I was like, well, that's what I'd like to do. And I realized quickly, I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I was also working on my private pilot's license at the time. And I'm like, well, I can either get my private pilot's license or I can get fat eating at McDonald's. Yeah. And I can tell you there's some days where I just was like, oh, I don't want to cook. But I had to kind of go through and weigh those decision points to go, which activity do I want my money supporting? So it's not about making your life smaller, but I think the message is about being intentional and going, what kind of experiences do I want to create in my life?
And living within your means as well. I mean, obviously, your example there when you were in the service in Florida, you had to budget, and you just looked at it and said, I can't spend money here. Here's what I'd rather be focusing on. So it's about prioritizing, and it's about what you can handle and living within your means. But again, we don't want to talk about, I like how you say, financial planning isn't about making your life smaller. It's actually about freeing up money to make your life more comfortable and to be able to enjoy the things. It's just, you do have to sometimes prioritize. You can't have everything. Sometimes, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. Yeah, exactly. to quote the Rolling Stones. So, I've been guilty of the whole eating out thing. And you think, oh, I grabbed $8 lunch today. What's the big deal? Well, if you're spending 10 now, and that, I don't know. I think last time I went out to lunch, it was like $12 at a, you can spend easily $12 at a fast food place now. So it's over 10. Yeah. So even if you're eating lunch every day, Monday through Friday, that's a lot that can add up. So you gotta watch it. But again, you got to live your life as well. So a good balance is always what's needed, right?
Yeah. And then here's another example. I know we've talked about it, but, and I thought I was being smart, but it's really easy to get logged on to like Netflix, and then Amazon's the worst because I love the British detective shows, and invariably I'll see it and then I have to get a BritBox, or I have to go to Acorn, or I have to go. And I sat down the other day because I was like, okay, how many subscriptions do I actually, because I'll sign up and be like, oh, the free 7-day trial, and then you forget. And Tony, I think I had like 7. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have told people on my show, do not do this. And I think
and how many of those are you even watching?
Well, that's the things you can only watch. And I think like in Hulu, I had gone in and you can suspend it, but I hadn't gone back. So apparently it had kicked back in. And I was like, okay, now this is a problem when I have subscriptions on channels that I'm not even watching.
Yeah.
Because like Hulu will have some of the shows I like The Good Doctor, or some of the Magnum PI or whatever, whatever they have. But then the season's over, so there's no reason to have the subscription, or you don't go and watch. And so and it was just enough of a hassle that we had to go and figure out, like, okay, how do we really put these to bed?
Yeah.
Because
I love BritBox too, but I subscribe because I love the English. The British shows are so good and the acting, but and those British mysteries are just classic. I
They're
love
addictive.
those. Yeah, they are very addictive.
Yeah.
But I've been so busy. I haven't watched BritBox in probably 5 months, but I'm paying
Right.
for it.
Right.
So yeah, it's just like I could have actually just canceled it and resubscribed at some point. It doesn't make that big of a difference.
Well, and that's where I think I really want to get to Disney Plus to watch the Beatles. I went to the IMAX and I saw Get
Oh,
Back.
that's so good.
It was fabulous, and so I'm now interested to go onto Disney because they have the full 6 hours.
Yes.
And so, but then I'm like, okay, well, so I need to go through and clean up and look at what I'm watching, and
Yep.
then pick one thing at a time. But
Yeah.
this is just
I
that
highly
example.
recommend that, though. I highly recommend the Beatles Get Back. I've watched the full 6 hours. It's amazing.
And Tony, this is actually a key thing I talk about in my book. Is I talk about, are you focused on fees or are you focused on the value and the final outcome? Because I think we get a little wrapped around the axle about trying to shop around for the cheapest fees. And I agree, you don't want to pay for something where you're not getting value, but it's the fee isn't the problem, it's the outcome. And so I really want people to wrap their heads around that. The fee is not as important if you're getting an outcome. And so this is why with all of these radio show or the TV show programs, the streaming programs, it's a problem because I'm paying fees, I realize, and I'm not getting any value because I don't have time to watch all of those. So that's one of those cases where to think about that concept, the fee is not the problem as long as you're getting a value. Like I'm willing to pay my $7 a month for Disney to get that, watch that program and do that. I'm happy to do that. But I don't want to be paying, I haven't watched Apple TV in, like 8 months. And I'm sure paying for that service. So that's where when you're paying a fee and then you're getting no value, that's when it's a problem. And
yep. Exactly.
And I have, I just went through this, Tony, with a client. We're going through and looking at long-term care solutions and kind of talking about giving your money more than one job and how, a whole life policy, if it's designed correctly, can also give long-term care coverage and give some tax-free growth. So it kind of does a lot of things, but he can't get past his head the fee, the premium. And when we run the numbers and run it out to where he's going to be at age 80 and what's going to be beneficial for his family, it makes sense, but he can't get past that fee. And so we're trying to have that conversation about, well, what's more important? Is this fee what's the showstopper, or is it what you're trying to create for your family? And so, and it's interesting because we all want to be smart shoppers, right? Nobody wants to be taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point. And, yeah, people do get hung up sometimes on the fees, but you have to do the math. And if you do the math, sometimes you realize you're right. That, that doesn't make sense because you'll pay this much in fees. And what are you getting for that? And, let's look at, is there another situation? But like you're always saying, do the math, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. And everybody's math is going to be different because they have different amounts, different needs, different goals. So I think that's important to note as well. But I want to go back to really everything we've talked about, but especially like, you talk about subscription services. And I think really the message here, a financial folly is it's not eating out or Starbucks or having a streaming service. It's knowing what you're spending, because a lot of people are spending money that they don't realize or they don't need to be. And that's why it's good to, maybe check that credit card sheet. You get your credit card statement each month to say what is being charged, and your bank statement from your checking account. A lot of people use check cards or debit cards from their checking account or a Visa check card. So you got to look at that statement every month and say, well, what's this? Why am I spending this boy, that really adds up. What is all that? And I think a lot of us would do that. And I do that a lot. I'm like, well, wait a minute. What in the world happened here?
Well, and you have to remember, I studied that. I remember when I was getting my MBA, Tony, we actually did a study on that. That was a marketing technique. Someone said, aha, let's create this where someone gives us all their information. They get, 30 days free. And then it continues unless they cancel it. So they changed the onus. Instead of you had to decide to opt in, they made it you have to opt out. Just knowing human nature, right? They took human psychology and said, oh, people forget, they get busy, and we'll get a good 6 months out of them before they go, okay, I really have to cancel that thing.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. And so that was done intentionally, preying on all of our weaknesses to go, oh, I'm too busy for that.
The subscription model is everything's by subscription now. I mean,
and it's very intentional. So that is one of those cases where, as being a good shopper, you're like, well, I don't want to be taken advantage of, and it's just something that's out there, and just be aware of it. And but you can also, it's a folly because we're all victim to it because it's human nature.
It's a big folly, and I'm sure our listeners out there, Tara, have questions and want to get on the right track, but even a bigger overall financial plan. How can they get a hold of you and Chris? I know you're offering a no-charge consultation. There's no fee for that consultation, and you'll sit down with them, and they'll be able to show you kind of where they're at, and you can let them know, here's what we could do for you based on your situation.
Sure, Tony. That number is 719-210-4242. It's 719-210-4242. And Tony, we'll do a discovery call. We can do it online, virtually, or we do it in person. I always prefer in person, but we at this point, Tony, we have clients all over the country. So that number is 719-210-4242. And you can also book a discovery call right through our website at nolanfinancialpartners.com. And Tony, I love that. Is what Chris and I really like to do is look at where you are, and we don't change anything that's working, but we identify the gaps and the things that'll help, that could derail your plan. And it's all about
the follies.
Exactly. It's
avoiding the follies. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And people there are mistakes they can make that it's not their fault. It's just they don't know what they don't know. So when it comes to planning for Social Security or taxes, or, saving money for retirement, or for your family, there are so many mistakes that can be costly financially. And that's what you help with, right?
It is, Tony. And I've created a new education that I'm doing with a lot of my clients and some of my advanced investors. And I'm realizing for most people, they've never understood really this idea about, you have to build momentum with your money. When you start out and you're getting your job, you're just trading hours for dollars. So as long as you're working, you're okay. But the minute you stop working, then there's no money coming in. And you have a good financial plan is about figuring out how to accelerate your growth. And you do that by giving your money more than one job.
Yeah.
And that's a concept that I have to walk a lot of people through. And it's always interesting, Tony, that people who have been very diligent savers and, funded their 401ks, those are all excellent things, but they haven't taken advantage of all the things to do to build that momentum. It's kind of like that snowball rolling downhill. It takes a lot of work to get it to the edge, but once you push it over the hill and it's rolling down, then it just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the part that I'm really actually, with a lot of people, Tony, having to sit down and kind of walk them through, how does that work, and get that concept, because you can't get to the understanding the numbers if you don't understand the concept first.
Yeah, that's huge.
And
that's huge.
And I can just share with you like a simple example of like talking about leverage. If you take $100,000 and put it in a savings account, what kind of interest are you going to earn?
Nothing. Very little.
Like 0.1% maybe, right? A little bit of nothing. But the point of a savings account, right, is your money is going to be safe. You're not going to lose it. So it's one job. But are you getting any leverage or momentum with that?
No.
That money's just sitting there. Now, what about if you put the money in the market, and let's just assume the market's doing well? What are you going to earn?
Yeah, it's going to grow.
It's going to grow, or it could go down, depending, because it's the market, right? So potentially,
now the markets every day could be a new story.
Could be down. Could be up. Could be down. And so then that's the case where it's you're going to potentially do better than sitting in the savings account, but you could also lose. So that's kind of a thing. Like, is the leverage there? Maybe not. But then you can start to look at, how do you incorporate your protection, the things that you're doing with insurance, and are you getting paid dividends, and are you getting tax-free growth? And so you're starting to get multiple jobs. Or another thing, a lot of clients that I work with, Tony, they'll have a rental property, and then they get to have tax deductions for the rental property, and then they get some rental income. So we start to explore, because everybody's a little different, like inside of your financial bubble, where are the areas in your life where you can be getting some momentum with your money?
Yeah.
And it's great to have money in a savings account, and you definitely want that, but that's step one. And what happens then is, once you have some of those basic steps, what are you missing in terms of building that momentum? Because ideally you want to step away in retirement, right, to be able to not worry and have your money's just working for you.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the follies.
Yep. That is a folly. A lot of people make the mistake of not having their money working for them, either letting it sit so it's not keeping up with inflation, or having too much at risk. That is a big folly that a mistake that a lot of people make.
Well, and of course you do, because it's not taught in school.
Right.
And you're not going to get it in a 30-second soundbite on a commercial. And so unless someone teaches you, there's no reason why you would ever know it. And so that's one of the big follies. And I love how you said it earlier, Tony. You're just like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
You do the things that you know how to do, of course.
Sure.
And that's why you look at the planning process to go have someone else give you that second opinion and go, you know what, if you did this and this right here, you could actually have your money working for you. That's why the book is called Money Moves, Change Where Your Money Lives, and Change How Your Financial World Grows. Because you can look at, okay, a bank account is one place, but what are some of the other options? And then that's where you have to couple it with your risk tolerance and all those different things in your life. So that's why it's quite a puzzle to put together.
Well, yeah, and that's just it. And I love the puzzle analogy that you use, because really it's like, it's like my wife and I are sitting at the table, and our financial picture is a 5,000 piece puzzle, and all these pieces are scattered all over the table. And you're like, okay, this piece is important. Well, this piece is important, but what's the most important piece? If we didn't have the box lid with the picture of what it's supposed to look like, the most important piece of any puzzle is the box lid.
Yes.
That is a fact. It's not the center piece. It's not the last piece. It's not the corner piece or the edge pieces. It's the box lid. And you can't put together that puzzle on your own without knowing the box lid. And the person who's going to help you see that big picture that's on the box lid is a financial services professional. And I think that's the best analogy I can think of to why it's so important. And we're not, this isn't a sales pitch. They need to work with any financial services professional that's trusted, that they've listened to and says, okay, I like the way this person's coming from. And so if they like the direction you're talking on the show, they should set up an appointment with you and Chris to see if it's a good fit, to get that box lid picture, to make sure somebody's got that in mind, to fit all those pieces together, because it gets more and more complicated every year with new IRS rules, new changes in insurance and healthcare and inflation and market volatility. I mean, the list is endless, isn't it?
Oh, it goes on. And that's why, I have a CPA as part of my team. I have an estate planning attorney as part of my team. I have a local banker I work with, because there's all this aspects to money, and it's so complicated, and one person can't know it all.
Nope.
And if you think you know it all, then what is that? You're at the poker table. If you don't know who the fish is, you're the fish.
Right, exactly. Well, hey, we're out of time. Give that phone number and web address one more time.
Sure, Tony. The phone number is 719-210-4242. The website is www.nolanfinancialpartners.com. And that number one more time is 719-210-4242. Give Chris and I a call if you're interested to look and make sure that you're not missing the things you just don't know.
All right. And that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio with our host, Tara Nolan.
Join us soon for another episode of Nolan Financial Radio. Take care, and we'll talk with you next time.